All right, welcome to Preview Review, where I sit down, I preview a movie, talk about it, what I think is going to happen, what I think could or couldn't happen, what to expect, and then I sit down or I go to the theater and I watch the film, and then I come back right here and I review it. So I sit down, I digest the film, kind of give a guttural reaction and a review. So this is the third preview review. The first two are available on the podcast feed. And I did them over Tenet and Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. So go check those out if you've seen those movies. And if you haven't, still go check out the first half. But today, I have a very special and fun episode. This should be pretty crazy because this is the release of the new Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League film that was released in 2017 under the DC expanded universe. And this film, the original Justice League, I went and saw it in theaters, and I've been pretty vocal about the DC movies over the past decade and how much I've been pretty displeased with what they've done with these characters and with these stories. And going into Justice League, I was not really looking forward to it, to be honest, because I kind of had a feeling it was going to be bad. There was a lot of production issues. Obviously, Zack Snyder having to step away from the project, due to personal things and family issues. They had Joss Whedon, who's now being canceled. He took over the project and ended up, scrapping together this really sloppy, messy film. That was... the original Justice League it was very messy. It was all over the place. They had to do a lot of introducing and setting up characters that, probably should have had their own solo movies prior to this movie being made. But, they were trying to play catch up the whole time with Disney and Marvel, which is kind of what got them in this big hole. I mean, if they seriously would have just sat down in 2015 and just made a Batman movie, made a Superman movie, made a Wonder Woman movie, made, a Aquaman movie, made a Flash movie, and then made a Green Lantern, and they tried that one, but and the Cyborg movie, make a Cyborg movie, make all these characters have their own solo movies, or at least most of them, and then give us Justice League down the road. But the fact that they were trying so hard to play catch up, they were trying so hard to match Disney and Marvel because they saw how much money they were making. And ended up biting him in the butt. And that's kind of a lesson to be learned. If you see somebody ascending, take your time, do it right, instead of trying to just play catch up and make some sloppy films to try and, speed up the process. You really have to take your time if you're going to do this kind of thing. You got to make us care about the characters before you throw them into these crazy situations. And that's something that, the Justice League film just didn't have the time nor the patience to do. The whole first act is then introducing, most of the new characters. You only really know Batman, Superman, and barely know Wonder Woman. You just know her enough to point her out. So they had to set up pretty much half of the Justice League in that movie. It was a lot of, just jumping from setting to setting, which can work. But in this movie, it just kind of felt like they were throwing a lot at you because they had to. The tone in that movie was a complete, jumbled mess. There was times where it was taking itself super seriously, and then there were other times where it's just trying to be funny and trying to make jokes, and you're just like, okay, how am I supposed to feel right now? I have a lot of problems with that movie, and amongst a lot of the other ones, Suicide Squad, which I've talked about in the past, I think it's terrible. It's one of the worst superhero movies ever made, in my opinion. It's horrendous. Batman versus Superman, which is arguably one of the bigger disappointments that I've ever seen in theaters. I remember walking out of that. I was going to Cancun for my senior spring break, the day after that came out in theaters. And I remember being like, man, I hope my trip is not as disappointing as that movie was. Because I was very excited for it. I was super excited for Batman vs. Superman. I mean, how could you not be? I mean, it was perfect timing. I was in high school. I love the characters. And, I just read The Dark Knight Returns for school. And I remember we all went and saw it, and I was so excited. And I remember when that Martha scene happened, when, they both realized that they're, Batman and Superman both realized their mom is named Martha, and they kind of become friends over that. And I just remember literally verbally in the theater, and I've talked about this, but verbally in the theater, I straight up just said to my friends, are you kidding me? Like, that is so dumb. Like, so stupid. And just stupid stuff like that. Also, the Lois finding the spear in the water or whatever, that whole scene was kind of strange. A lot of weird things in that movie. And they tried, again, another movie they tried to jam way too much into. And that's really just the biggest theme with these DC movies so far, outside of the first Wonder Woman, was that, these movies just try so hard to shove so much into one movie instead of just trying to tell a story from A to B, and for me, that's just not going to do it. I want good movies. I want the movie to be able to stand on its own and be a good movie, despite all of the pretenses. And give me just a story that makes sense from point A to point B. I mean, because this stuff that they're trying to do, I mean, they literally introduce the Justice League characters in a scene where they pull up videos on a computer. I mean, what kind of lazy writing is that? So I hope that for this Justice League movie, let's move in now to the actual movie I'm going to be previewing here, which is the Snyder cut of Justice League. So now I've kind of given you some preface of why I completely despise the Justice League movie we got in 2017. Was a complete ball of mess. So going into the Snyder cut, obviously I talked about the trailer a couple months back on episode 23 of the TJ Martino podcast. I talked about the Snyder cut and how I was excited for the fact that we were actually getting something like this. Because, very rarely do we get nowadays directors releasing these kind of director's cuts, of their movies, especially for movies that failed. And this is something I kind of would like to see, the movie industry continue to do, is this kind of thing, almost like a redemption. I guess the Snyder thing was a little bit of a different circumstance because he had shot a lot of his movie before he left the project. So they already had pretty much, they obviously have a lot of footage here. It's a 4-hour movie. I said it was a mini series, but now it's just a straight up movie, but it's a 4-hour movie. So I'll be back on here in 4 hours to give you how I feel. But this is a 4-hour film. So they shot a lot for this. So this is kind of a different circumstance, but at the same time, I would like to see more director's cuts reach the surface. Not even, just in the superhero world. I just mean in general, because it's always just kind of cool to see what the director's actual straight up vision is, without any other intervention. I think this is a trend I'd like to see you keep going with, directors getting a second shot, especially if the movie had potential like Justice League. This was just a perfect opportunity to do something like this. So I'm happy that they were able to do it. I don't know if they even reshot anything. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I could see them reshooting stuff with maybe like Gal Gadot, because she was recently shooting the Wonder Woman movie. Well, that was actually a couple of years ago, so I don't even know. We'll have to see what they do, but we'll find out. But as for the story, we kind of know how this is going to go. I just hope they really sit down and just make us care about the villains of this movie. That's what I really, because I think it's going to be Darkseid and probably the villains, Steppenwolf from the original Justice League movie. I'm sure that he'll be in there too. So I'm down for it, man. Just give me villains that actually have some depth to them, because I haven't seen one even decent villain yet in this new DC universe. Not even one decent one yet. Seriously, like the Lex Luthor was a disappointment. And I like Jesse Eisenberg. It was just, he was very miscast and didn't really have a whole much to do, but outside of put Jolly Ranchers in people's mouths. But and go like this, that was a freaking weird character. But yeah, that was a disaster. General Zod, I take that back. General Zod, Man of Steel is a good character. And let me talk about Man of Steel for a quick second. I did say the movie was boring when I brought it up before. I do still think it is kind of boring, but I kind of was a little harsh on it. I actually don't think it's that bad of a movie. I think the ending where he snaps Zod's neck is pretty ballsy, and that's actually a really awesome finale to that movie. Besides the point. But yeah, I just hope that this movie has more sophisticated villains to it than anything we've seen in the previous movies, because, the villains have been horrendous in pretty much almost all of these movies. Even in Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman, I found the villain to be pretty bland. And, the second Wonder Woman, Kristen Wiig's character was fine, but as I predicted, the CG looked terrible in that movie. I said that when I saw the trailer. I was like, this looks like it's going to look really bad. And it did, but it was not that bad of a movie. I think it got way too much crap. But yeah. But as for Justice League, looking forward to it. These characters, I'm just excited to see them hopefully get a mulligan on this and do this right. That's really what I want. I just want them to do this right. And give us a Justice League movie that we can be satisfied with and sit back and be like, okay, that was good, And the thing is, I think with this is that there isn't a lot of pressure on this. So I think this has a lot of potential to be good because there isn't as much pressure as there was on the first Justice League movie. I mean, the first one had so much pressure because it was the first time the Justice League, had ever grazed the big screen, and we get it in this big, pile of crap. So I hope that they can get back and actually make a cohesive film, and I trust Zack Snyder. I like him as a filmmaker. I do. 300 is a really pretty movie that I think it's my favorite of Zack Snyder's movies. Is 300. I love that movie. I think it's beautiful and it's so well done. It's the only movie that has really good looking CGI blood, because usually when you get CGI blood, it looks like crap, but the blood actually looks pretty good in that movie. But yeah, and I think Zack Snyder is a lot of people say he's style over substance. And yeah, you can make that argument for sure, especially with some of his movies. But overall, I think he's a good filmmaker. I do. And I wish he would have gotten his due on the original Justice League. But hey, he's got his chance now with the Snyder Cut to really make this story make, somewhat sense. And as long as this, honestly though, like I said, the bar is so low for this movie that honestly, even if it blows, it can't be worse than what we got in theaters. Like, as long as it's not worse than what we got in theaters, I'll be okay with it. Honestly, I'm not asking for too much here. I just want to see a fun, or it doesn't even have to be fun. Even if it's gritty, I don't care. I just want to see a movie that'll entertain me with some good character. Give me some good back and forth with the Justice League too. I want to see some actual tension between these characters, especially with it being the movie where they all kind of come together. I want to see some growing pains there. I want to see Batman go at it with Aquaman and Wonder Woman go at it with Cyborg or whatever, or any of that stuff. I just want to see these kind of these characters butt heads. We saw it in the Avengers movies, and it was really cool. That scene when Thor and I think it's Thor and Iron Man are fighting, and then Captain America breaks it up or something. And they're fighting in the woods. I think it's in the first Avengers movie, if I can remember. But I want stuff like that. I want to see these characters really go at it. And maybe not Batman and Superman, because they kind of already did that and botched it. But some of these other characters, give me some tension with these characters. Give me some stakes. Give me something that's going to make me really care about these heroes. And as for the Dark Superman, I'm in on that, man. That was something that they had obviously shot and talked about with the original Justice League movie, and we never even saw a single shot of it. So instead, we just saw him, get dunked into the liquid or whatever. But in the Man of Steel ship. So we didn't really get to see that. So, I just want to see Superman come back, be a badass. Because I actually like the scene in the Justice League movie where they bring him back after they dump him in the stuff or whatever, and they bring him back, and he's beating the crap out of all the Justice League members. That was definitely my favorite scene in the movie. Probably because it's one of the only ones I remember, but still, that was an awesome scene. But the rest of it, yeah, and the fake mustache. The less shots with the fake Henry Cavill mustache, the better, because that was just horrible. I remember seeing that in the theater, and I was like, ugh, what the hell? That movie was bad. And yeah, I like I said, the bar is so low here. As long as this movie is halfway decent, that's all I'm really asking for. I'm not asking for too much here. I don't think. And I love these characters, so I hope they give them their due diligence. I want to see some real tension, some real combating, and I want to see these villains be really fleshed out. I'm not 100. Like I said, I'm not 100 sure. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure who the villain is. I think it's probably, is it going to be Steppenwolf or Darkseid or someone like that? Yeah, probably. I'm down. Just make me care about him. Because that's the thing with Steppenwolf and the Justice League. I didn't give an inkling of a crap about what Steppenwolf was trying to do. I didn't even really know what he was trying to do. Obviously, he was just trying to take over the world. But that's just, generic, boring villain stuff. So, I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited for this movie, and I think I'm going to get watching it because it's 4 hours long, and I don't really have that much to preface this with anymore. I got all my points out. So this is the end of the preview, and I will be going on to the review, and you will be hearing from me in 4 hours, my time, but your time like a second. So you'll be hearing from me soon, and all right, guys, we're back 4 hours later. We're back, and we've just finished the entire Zack Snyder's Justice League film from start to finish. Listen to the entire thing, watch the entire film, the entire 4-hour movie. Yes, as you can see, the sun is already in a different spot than earlier, but we are here, and this is going to be the review section. Welcome to the review. So now we will be getting into the spoilers of the film. So if you have not seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, go watch it and take your time, because it's a very long film. Yeah, and I think it would work better if you watched it in parts. That's all I'll say. But I'll just give a little bit of spoiler-free thoughts before I give the spoiler warning. So what I'll say about the film is that it is incredibly long, but it is very satisfying if you're a fan of DC Comics and these characters, because I think this was a very good movie. I really enjoyed it. I did. There is problems with it that I have, for sure. But overall, I was pretty pleased with this film, and it's much, much better than the theatrical release we got a couple of years ago that I still think is not a good film at all. I was a little harsh on it maybe at first in the preview section, but, I was being harsh to make a point that, everybody loves these characters, and we want to see them have, their due diligence, their justice given to them, and we finally got it, and it was really satisfying, I bet, for these actors as well if they ever watch this movie, because everybody just had a really bad taste in their mouth after the first Justice League movie. I mean, it was a bad situation, and it's crazy to me. The thing that I'm thinking about the most before I get into spoilers, and this is kind of like what I'm going to wrap up with the movie as far as without going into spoilers, is how studios can cut so much of a movie and just completely redo it, because the ending to this film is completely different than the ending that we get in the Justice League theatrical cut. It's completely different, and I actually like this ending a lot more. That's for sure. But it's amazing to me how this film was just radically chopped down and cut down to the point where it was just, it was, basically skin and bones at that point. There was absolutely no meat to the Justice League film that we got in theaters. There just was nothing to it that was really making me connect with any of these characters, believe that they actually have any camaraderie, believe that they have anything. So, this movie was just definitely a breath of fresh air in that department. And yeah, I think directors should definitely get mulligans like this. This was definitely a case that worked out the best because they had shot so much of this film. I mean, they basically reshot the entire ending. But I don't want to get into any more without going into the spoiler warning. So if you have not seen the film at this point, this is your final warning. Spoiler-free thoughts. I like the film a lot, but I don't want to go into too much else than that. So this is your spoiler warning in 3, 2, 1. Okay, spoiler time. So this film, or I guess it was pitched as a miniseries at first, but I guess they released it as just a full-on 4-hour film. So I guess I'll just keep calling it a film. The first thing you see when you turn on the film is it is shot in 4:3 aspect ratio, which is basically, if you don't know what it is, it's like a lot of animation is shot in 4:3, or drawn in that case in 4:3. It's basically like a box with the side, the black bars, instead of going across horizontally like in widescreen mode, the bars go down vertically on the sides. I guess is the best way to describe it. If you look up a picture of 4:3 aspect ratio, you'll know what I'm talking about. But or if you watch Justice League, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I thought that was kind of unique. You see the little disclaimer at the beginning, soft little flex there from Zack Snyder. And hey, I mean, I'm fine with that. It's kind of like a little artistic spin on it in a way, because he's saying this is not a theatrical film, even though it is in a lot of ways, because it's still got a lot of the big budget action from the theatrical cut of the Justice League movie. But I think this movie did a better job in the sense that it took all of the good parts, the good moments of the Justice League film, and basically fleshed them out, made them more interesting. One of the things I talked about in the preview was the camaraderie of the characters. And I thought that this really did a great job of that, of really making you realize that these guys are a team, because that's the thing. They did it with Suicide Squad too, where you just didn't care about any of the characters really, It was just, one sec. Just want to turn some brightness down there. But you just didn't really feel any continuity in the relationship with the characters. Like 1 second they're all bickering, and then literally the next, 2 or 3 scenes later they're friends, and they're family, but you don't really buy it. But you buy it in this film for sure. So they did a good job of that, of really adding some of those scenes in there with the banter of the characters, for sure. But the thing about it is this I kind of want to break this down by part, because this film or miniseries, whatever we call it, is broken down into parts. It's, there's 6 parts. They're around like 30 minutes or so long. I turned the brightness down a little too low. But they broke it down into parts, 6 parts. So they make it that way so you can watch it kind of like a mini series. And I don't know if they have it on HBO. I think that if the HBO has that feature where you can watch each part like individually, that would be helpful, because I would like to just kind of watch chunks of this movie, because it is very long. It's a lot, and that's why it's gonna be hard for me. That's why I want to use the 6 parts to kind of explain this film, because there's just a lot to unpack with this. There's a lot. So breaking it down with part 1, Don't Count on It, Batman. And this basically was, the film starts from what I can remember, and I'm going off straight memory. I just watched it, so I'm coming fresh off memory. So if I kind of get some things wrong, or I'm kind of a little shaky on some of the plot points, bear with me, okay? I've only seen it once, literally just now. So Don't Count on It, Batman is the first part. And, it opens up, the film opens with these really long shots that kind of show you all of the different locations you're going to go to. So, you get the Amazons, the Atlantis, all that stuff. And it's kind of cool because, you get a little bit of a perspective of what, what you're going to be dealing with, and kind of how all of these different, lands are connected by the boxes, the MacGuffins, the cubes, which I'll get into why I just don't like that whole concept. For this movie in particular. But you get that whole context that because that's the thing, you don't really understand what the point of like the boxes are in the original Justice League movie. They don't do really any justice of explaining it. So we'll get into that. But with this, you get Batman, obviously, gets the threat that, the bad guys are coming, kind of like, he gets that feeling, I guess, and he goes to try and recruit the Justice League members. So, he goes to get Aquaman, and you get that scene. It comes off as corny in the original one, but they actually give you the full scene, where they actually kind of like interrogate Bruce Wayne a little bit more, which I kind of liked. And that's the thing. I just liked how they took their time with this, and they actually used a lot of the footage. It's crazy how much of this was shot that just was left on the cutting room floor. It's amazing. There's so many good scenes in this movie that are left on the floor, and this was one of them that was just completely chopped up and repackaged for the movie, and they just took all of the money shots from the scene and left all of the context in the meat and bones. And it's a good experiment to watch the first Justice League movie, the original theatrical release, and then watch the Snyder cut after it, and just see how a studio can dissect a film and chop it down to 2 hours and 10 minutes or whatever it ended up being, 2 hours and 20 minutes. But this, I'm glad they just took their time with this, and I'm glad Zack Snyder was just given pretty much full creative control to come in and just make the movie he wanted to make. But yeah, with this, I liked how they kind of make Batman a little bit more charming in this one. Then you kind of get, and you get some of that Ben Affleck charm in some of the in Batman v Superman and in Justice League, but theatrical. But you don't, you get a lot more of it in this movie. This is definitely the best Batman you get out of this universe for sure. But I like how Batman Aquaman just kind of shakes him off and he's like, I don't want to be a part of it. And then, they all eventually kind of shake him off or blow him off outside of the Flash, but we'll get into him. But I like how eventually he gets with Wonder Woman and you get the Wonder Woman opening scene. I think that's in this section. If it's not, it's in the next one. But you get that opening scene from Justice League where she saves all the children, but you get an F-bomb. I heard an F-bomb in this, and I forgot. I did not mention in the preview how this was rated R. I completely forgot about that. And this movie benefits from it very much because you actually get to see a lot of the action. And, you really get a lot of cool payoff in this movie with some of the characters that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise with the PG-13 rating. So I'm glad they went balls out with this as well. You get some blood too. But in that scene, you get the guys holding up the children just happen to be on field trip. And I was thinking in the movie, I'm like, you know what? It's actually kind of, if you're going to rob a place like that, like a public place, with like a museum or something like that, that'd be the time to do it, to time it up right when you can take hostages. So that's a cool way to write villains, just for that scene, for a small character like that. It worked. And I like this scene way more than the one you get in Wonder Woman 2 in the mall. This is a way better scene for Wonder Woman. And we get it in Justice League, so I guess, you get it. But it's a little bit shaved down. But you do get the money shots from it. And so then we go on to Age of Heroes, which is part 2, which is this is where you actually get the myth, the mythology and the actual history of the three. Uh-oh, someone's in trouble. But you actually get the history of the cubes. So this was actually one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, and it's just because of that flashback you get of the actual war on Earth for the cubes, and it is freaking awesome what they did. And I think you get some of this in Justice League, the theatrical, but it's way you can tell they went in and definitely fleshed it out and made it way more interesting. And I feel like they added some footage to that scene. I should have watched the Justice League movie before I watched this one, but honestly, I was thinking about it, but I just couldn't sit through that shit. Honestly, I couldn't do it. So maybe someday I'll go back and watch it, but not now. I just, but maybe I should have, because it's hard for me to kind of remember what was in both movies. But I know if it was in the movie, which it might have been in the theatrical release, it was definitely not as cool looking or as epic as it is in the Snyder cut. It is epic, man. I was like, holy crap, this is really interesting. This is like one of the most interesting backstory flashback, exposition scenes I've ever seen in a comic book movie. So really impressive stuff from Zack Snyder there. And he really does a great job of shooting war scenes, with the horses and the spears and the swords and all that, with the 300 and all that. So he definitely was channeling some 300 energy in this movie. You get kind of the history of the cubes and what you don't really get what they do quite yet, but you get why that they're important, and they're kind of what Steppenwolf is trying to get in the movie. And Steppenwolf is basically trying to collect these the cubes for Darkseid, so Darkseid can use them to, I guess, change the worlds that he conquers into what he wants them to be. Is I guess what I took from it. But the thing I didn't like about the Age of Heroes flashback exposition scene was that it kind of, the fact that Darkseid loses, But at the same time, that's kind of his motivation to go back to Earth. So I guess I kind of do like it. Never mind. Take that back. Sometimes you got to think these things out, especially after you just watch the movie. But so never mind. I actually do really like that now that I think about it. I think it's a great scene. It may be my favorite scene in the entire film now that I think about it, because it was really epic and really well done. And I like Wonder Woman's Gal Gadot's voiceover narrating it. It's pretty awesome. But then, you get that, and then I like how I don't know if it's in this chapter or not, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. I like how Lois Lane gets more to do in this movie. Not necessarily to do, but just enough screen time that when she is important, it's earned and it's paid off. And I thought that was something that was definitely missed in Batman vs. Superman and definitely missed in Justice League as well. So it was good to see that they took the time to actually give Lois Lane a little bit of context, along with Martha Kent as well. So good stuff there. Some good, good to help take some of the pace, help with the pace of this for sure. But then you go on to Beloved Mother, Beloved Son, which is part 3. And this is where you get the intros to the Flash and the Cyborg, and you kind of find out about them. And the Cyborg, he plays football. You see the flashback of him on, he plays a college football at Gotham City University, and guess what? They beat Wisconsin. So Wisconsin sucks in real life and in the DCEU. So yeah, not getting the Badgers are not getting a lot of love, man. Because, before Cyborg becomes the Cyborg, he scores all over their ass. So, shout out to you. I automatically liked him. I'm like, he's scoring on Wisco. That's my guy. And honestly, his character, which is an integral part of this plot, and he got literally like 2 seconds of screen time in the original Justice League movie, much more in this film. And and I like the backstory he gets. It's heartbreaking. It's sometimes really unsettling, but it makes sense, and it makes this movie at least make sense. This movie makes sense, unlike the original version of it, which is just because they cut so much of the meat out of the story, which I'll get into my biggest complaint with the film, which is the story, but in a way, but I'll get to that at the end if I can remember. But anyway, but I did love this character. Really good stuff from and Ray Fisher, really good actor as well. He was, obviously shelved in the original Justice League, so it was good to see him kind of have an arc in this film, an actual character, because he really doesn't do much in the theatrical cut. And then you also get the Flash. The Flash's opening scene, Barry Allen's opening scene in this movie, is so awesome. I don't even think it was. There's no way it was in the original cut, because I do not remember it. But really awesome. He's flirting with this girl, I guess, and then she goes and gets in her car and like drives, and basically she rams into this thing, and he's like inside the building, and he runs out and saves her like in the middle of the street. Really awesome way to use the slow motion and all that. And you could tell they kind of took some inspiration from the X-Men films when they did it with Quicksilver, but they kind of made it their own and made it kind of a sweet moment. So really awesome way to introduce the character. And I remember pausing being like, there's no way that was in the original cut. There's no way. That was way too good of a scene. I would have remembered that. So, I mean, how do they leave that out? How do they leave that out of the movie? It's ridiculous. Then we go to part 4. Change Machine, and this is where we actually find out about the cubes. But also in between those two scenes, you get the battle scene where they actually meet Steppenwolf for the first time, and they fight him in the tunnel. And that's what I was talking about. My favorite moment from the original Justice League theatrical cut was the scene where I think the Flash goes down and catches something. I said, well, he actually goes down and taps Wonder Woman's sword up to her. That's what I was referring to or thinking about. So yeah, he basically, the scene where they're all kind of, where Wonder Woman has to get the sword and she's reaching for it, and he has, and you see the Flash running down the circle trying to go, and then he taps it up to her and she catches it. Really cool moment. So fan of that. And they kept, again, like I'm saying, they kept a lot of the cool moments from Justice League, because there was cool moments and cool concepts in Justice League. They just were horribly executed in the theatrical cut, of course. But then the Change Machine, where you kind of figure out what these cubes actually do, because the whole film, Steppenwolf, basically his motivation is that he's, kind of always been disrespected by Darkseid, and he wants to prove himself, and so he has to go basically be his, handyman and go catch all the cubes up, the 3 cubes, kind of like a Thanos hybrid kind of thing. But not really. But because this was shot before that movie came out, which is interesting. I think it was shot before that. Don't really entirely remember that. That could be wrong. But it definitely came out before Infinity Wars. So I would assume it was shot before, but who knows? But that was a cool scene. Yeah. But they get one of the cubes, because Steppenwolf, he's trying to get all the cubes, 3 of the cubes for Darkseid, so that he can summon Darkseid's powers and all that. So, it's a little, like I said, it was a little bit like Thanos, but not really. It's kind of like a weaker version of that, less interesting, less colorful too. But I mean, I like how the cubes, then they get, you get kind of an explanation for the cubes, and this is kind of my biggest thing. I said I didn't really like the cubes. I don't. I think they're kind of a weak thing with the story, and it gets into kind of my biggest thing with the story, which is that it's just a little too long to be scrunched down into what was supposed to be a 2.5-hour movie. But yeah, with the cubes, my thing with it is just, it's like I said, it's too much like Infinity Wars. It's too much like, and Steppenwolf, for me, just, he at least had a little bit more for him to do in this movie, and you actually kind of understood his motivations more in this movie, because you didn't really, he was just kind of a CGI body in the original Justice League movie. So in this one, at least, he gets a little bit of character, because he's, kind of downtrodden, trying to prove himself, and then ultimately gets his comeuppance. Again, I don't know if he was the right villain for this movie. And this goes back even to before, when this movie was originally written. But I mean, for what they had, it works. But I'm just talking about the actual concept and the actual concept behind the story of this movie, because the story overall is the exact same as the original Justice League film, the theatrical cut. It's just way more interesting. But the Change Machine, as for this chapter, like I said, you learn about the cubes, and like I said, I don't love the concept of them. Honestly, I just think it's kind of cliche to have, these MacGuffins that you go chasing around, and then you put them together and they have this big power. That's what I was trying to get at with that explanation of why it's kind of like Thanos. But it was okay. This movie came out before that, so technically it's not copying. So it's all right, but still a little bit of weird deja vu. But yeah, and then you kind of realize that once they get the cube, they're like, oh, we can use this to, they get one of the cubes, and they're like, okay, well, we can use this to bring Superman back. So then obviously they bring him to the spaceship, which is run by the Cyborg's dad, which is awesome that he gets a character, like, because his character's just kind of there, just as a plot device, because they didn't have enough time to explain him. Well, they actually did, but they didn't, the studios didn't have enough time to have him be explained. So he's just kind of thrown in there. But in this movie, he's an actual character, and you get that father-son relationship with the Cyborg, which makes his character so, so interesting and so good. He's definitely one of my favorite characters in the film. Yeah, they realize that we can revive Superman with this, and if we can bring him back, then we can start taking control of this battle. So, because Steppenwolf has 2 of the cubes, and he needs to get the last one, so they basically go to the ship, get Superman's body, and they do the thing they do in the original movie. They bring him back to life, but I do think they stretch out the scene where they actually where the Flash runs and taps the cube just as it touches the water to bring Superman back to life, to charge him, to give him that shock, to bring him back to life. They definitely drag that out a little bit longer to make it a little bit more suspenseful, which I liked. And yeah, it worked. It worked a lot. So, yeah, I mean, it was fine. And you see that scene in the next chapter, All the King's Horses, which is chapter 5 or part 5. That's when you get that scene where they resurrect Superman, and then awesome, like the best scene in the original Justice League. I said the best moment was when he taps the sword, but the best scene is when Superman gets resurrected and starts beating the crap out of people. And they make way more sense in this movie than it does in the original. And I mean, it doesn't really make sense why he does it, but it's cool. It's a cool scene, and it works. And they give it enough context that it makes sense. But for me, it's just kind of like, why is he just going on an angry rampage and then he sees Lois and then he just remembers everything magically? It's just kind of like, it was kind of weird how he just kind of like, oh, I remember everything, just saw Lois, but I saw all these people I knew already, but I didn't recognize any of them. I recognized Lois Lane, which I mean, I get because he loves her, but at the same time, I mean, whatever. You know, it's a comic book movie. It's whatever. I can't keep making that excuse though, you know? I can't make that excuse all the time. These movies are trying to be smart. But whatever, you know, it is what it is. The scene's awesome, and they do definitely add some more gruesome moments to it, but they definitely still capture the essence of what the scene was, so it works. And then it goes into the final scene. Once Superman's back alive, they go after Steppenwolf and destroy the cubes. So they basically use the cyborg as like a means to destroy the cubes. He like plugs into him, I guess, or something. I didn't, you know, whatever. I get it. But they use him, and basically they fight Steppenwolf, and I love how they kill him. They literally decapitate him. Well, first he gets impaled. He gets impaled by the trident of Aquaman, thrown up in the air, and decapitated by Wonder Woman. And then his head rolls through a portal under the foot of Darkseid and gets smushed. It's a pretty badass way to go, honestly. And it's pretty cool that they showed all that for a Justice League movie, to have that gritty of a execution of a villain. It was pretty awesome to see, honestly. And look, I actually thought Steppenwolf was a decent villain this time around. So, it hit a lot harder than I thought it would. And look, the action was fine in it. The CG looked good. You could definitely tell they touched it up. They took their time with it. And, I'm glad they did this. I'm glad they did it, because now I finally have a Justice League, movie or whatever I probably will never watch it all in one sitting again. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll sit down and watch the Batman vs. Superman extended cut into this. But, yeah. But then, like I said, the final battle is in part 6, Something Darker, which, I'm kind of getting a little ahead of myself. But you get the point. Something Darker, you get that final battle. But then the worst part of the movie comes up. The dream sequence at the end with Batman and Joker just seems so out of place, so unnecessary. And I wish they would have ended the film right as you see Superman pull out his shirt and you get that black S on his chest and then cut to black, man. Why do we don't need Joker and Batman fan service in this movie. Like, we just, we don't. And the Martian Manhunter thing, that was cool, but like, are we going to see any of that? Maybe, I think I wouldn't be surprised if they make another one of these movies. If Zack Snyder comes back and they bribe enough of these people to come back and play these roles, they can definitely get it done. So I wouldn't be surprised if they definitely go back to down that route and make another Justice League movie, because they got the cliffhanger, they got Darkseid looming, and I liked how they did that. I liked how they left the cliffhanger in there just in case someday they want to go back and finish it off. But on to the point I was going to make earlier about my least favorite, and I kind of made it earlier, but I'll make it fully here, of my least favorite aspect of this film, which is the story. And you're probably thinking, TJ, how do you like the film, but you didn't like the story? And I'll tell you, I like what they did with the story, because this story is messy, in my opinion. There's just a lot, and it relies way too much on MacGuffins and cliches in the first half. And for me, man, Steppenwolf just, you don't, I wish they made him more sympathetic of a villain, because, in this, you want to go that route of him being, this guy that's kind of downtrodden and kind of looked down upon by his, his peers, then really kind of show us like that he's, just kind of this, guy that gets walked all over by his bosses, by Darkseid and all the other villains, but he wants to be, the tough villain. So he gets this big break, to capture these cubes for his master. And he, yeah, F's it all up. So, you know, I would have liked to see that character be a little bit more sympathetic, honestly. Like, but at the same time, still menacing and scary. I'm not saying let him be a wuss, but at the same time, you know, make him be menacing and scary, but still, you know, kind of realize like, man, this guy, you know, he's kind of got it bad. If you really think, like, he doesn't really have a choice. He has to act this evil and irrational because he has to prove to people, you know, he has something to prove. So I think there could have been a little bit more work done that way. Also, you know, the cubes, like I mentioned, just a messy plot device, honestly, and it's just too much like the Infinity Stones. I think they could have come up with something more creative than that, in my opinion. I don't know what it would have been, but the cubes, and it looks too much like the cube from Transformers too. It's just like too many MacGuffins that are shaped like a cube. It's so cliche, and it's probably from the comics, but like there's definitely other comics out there that, you know, have Darkseid using some other weapon or something, you know. So, I mean, come on, I just don't really care for these cubes, and it's kind of like, here's the comparison I want to make with them. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings meets the Infinity Gauntlet, because you get, you know, the Infinity Stones that come together and create this powerful force that's unstoppable, but also, you know, it's kind of like Lord of the Rings because it's like the rings that get sent to the elves and the humans and the dwarves and the whatevers. So it's kind of like that, in a sense. It's kind of like those two concepts combined, and I don't know. It just kind of came off as a little cliche, and maybe and I kind of like how they at least gave it some explanation though. Like, and that's why I don't hate it, because yeah, I don't like the concept, but at least they gave it. At least it makes sense, you know. Like they at least made sense in this movie. Like they dedicated an entire chapter to explaining how this works. I wish they could have used it a little bit more in action, though. I mean, obviously they used it as a tool to bring Superman back to life, but I wish they would have maybe used it in other ways, you know, because that's something that you see with, you know, I hate to compare this to Infinity Wars, but you can't help but make the comparisons. You know, you see Thanos throughout that movie use the gauntlet in so many different ways. You know, when he shoots it at Drax the Destroyer and turns him into like the little cubes, and then, you know, he's and then he obviously uses it to teleport and for all different things, and it makes sense, you know. But with this, it just, they don't really explain the soft magic behind these actual cubes. You know, they just kind of are like, oh, they change matter. And I mean, they make sense of it, but it's just like they never use it for anything, I guess is my point. It definitely makes sense. They do a good job of explaining it. And I like how they use the house burning down as an example. That was a really smart writing choice for sure. And they obviously, I think they cut that from the original movie. I don't think that's in the original movie. So thanks for that, Joss Whedon. Thanks for actually explaining what the cubes actually do. Because yeah, Snyder had to come clean up the garbage for you, man. Well, yeah, he sucks. But yeah, outside of some of the issues I had with the story, I liked this movie, man. I really did, and I'll definitely watch this again at some point, and definitely watch it in parts, because I don't think I can sit down for 4 hours straight and watch that again. But and I guess, but at least it has rewatchability, because you can watch it chapter by chapter. Just watch a chapter, pause it, go out, do something, come back, hit play. You know, that's the good thing about it being on HBO Max. And you know, I think this movie really benefited from an R rating. It really I want to see more harder edge superhero movies. You know, I think that'd be kind of cool. I mean, we've definitely gotten some now recently, but you know, I'm down for more. I like to see you know, grotesque violence, you know, stunts, you know, violent stunts, you know, fun visual effects, practical effects. That's the stuff I like to see. So that's why I like, you know, graphic stuff in films, because you know it's all fake. So it's just like, it's cool to see them try and emulate that kind of stuff. So yeah, I like that stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely down for more of these kind of rated R superhero movies for sure. Give me more. If they made a sequel to this, I'm totally down. Like I said, you know, this was definitely the movie we should have got in 2017. But again, you know, going back to the story, and my problem with it is that there was no way to fit this whole story into a 2.5 hour movie. There was absolutely no way. And that's kind of my problem with the film from the start. And I think that's kind of where they got themselves in trouble, is They didn't take into account the story they were telling and how much runtime they would actually need to tell it not efficiently, but effectively, because they tried to do it efficiently and it just ended up being a chopped up spaghetti bowl of mess. So take your time. If you got to make 2 movies, make 2 movies. You got to make 3 movies, make 3 movies. They make a bazillion dollars off these things. Like, why wouldn't they just like take their time? But the thing is, they were chasing the Avengers, and it got them in a hole, and it forced them. You know, they got some bad situations with Zack Snyder and what was going on in his life, and so they ended up shoveling out this piece of junk that we got in theaters. I wish I could have saw that whole 4-hour movie in theaters, but at least we got it. And like I said, I want to see more things like this where where you get these directors that are good directors and had a vision, but the studio just came in and absolutely ate up the movie and completely changed it into something else. And when it comes out in theaters, they're like, well, that's not the movie I wanted to make. And then everybody sees it and they're like, we don't like this. This wasn't what we were sold. And, or what you're selling us, we don't like, it could be either of those reasons, but, the point is that, they should definitely give these directors more opportunities to have a little redemption, especially like this was like I said, like I've been saying, it's a perfect opportunity because of how much they had shot. And it's amazing that with that ending, they were able to literally, they went back and literally cut that entire ending. The entire Black Superman outfit was chopped out of the original Justice League theatrical cut. It is not in the movie at all, not even for a single shot. And it is like the only way Superman really shows up in this movie. But again, outside of issues I have with the story, and really it kind of boils down to the fact that the story just would not have worked any other way than this, or splitting up into 2 movies and releasing them in theaters. So, I mean, like I said, but the story works in this 4-hour format. It does. It's, again, it's still a little bit cliche in places and a little bit predictable in places for sure. But overall, I thought it was fine. But the visual effects are good. The action's, entertaining. You get a lot of still the good moments from that Justice League movie that came out in theaters. And yeah, it was cool to see, these characters given justice and these actors given justice, because you got to feel bad for them, man. They you're walking into doing a Justice League movie and it just ends up being you shoot this movie that you think is going to be incredible, and then you get the final piece and it's just 2 hours of just like the biggest shots from the stuff you shot, not even like any of the meat and potatoes behind it. So, like I said, more of this kind of stuff. And giving the movie a grade, I'm going to go 3.8 out of 5 for this one, man. I really liked this movie. I really did. For Zack Snyder's Justice League, a 3.8 out of 5. I think that's a fine grade. I really liked this movie, man. It was entertaining. It gave me everything I needed, man. The cool shots, the great cinematography from Zack Snyder. This movie was tonally a lot more consistent. The jokes were, fine when they landed. They recycled a couple from the original movie, theatrical movie, but, whatever. We got a lot more Alfred in this, which was cool. I don't know why I thought of that, but yeah, shout out to Alfred, shout out to Jeremy Irons. But Steppenwolf was definitely a step up in the right direction in terms of writing, but again, could have been a little bit more interesting. The cubes, they could have definitely made something more interesting there. Instead of, recycling, other stories, or, we've seen that kind of stuff. Like, oh, collect these and put them together and you have something bigger. It's just like, we've seen that a million times. Like, I don't know. It just didn't seem very creative. That's all I'll say. That's the last thing I'll say about it. But, for what they had, going back through all the footage they shot, all the things they did, and piecing it all together and making a movie that makes sense, it's all you can ask for. And if you're a fan of if you like the movie, let me know what you like. Let me know what your favorite scenes are. Let me know what I missed, because it's a 4-hour film. I mean, give me a break. I can't remember every scene, every detail, but I'm trying. That's why I'm just kind of thinking right now while I'm speaking. I'm thinking out loud, trying to just remember moments from the movie and trying to digest it all. because it's just a lot, man. That's 4 hours. But it worked. It worked. And I was complaining about the flipping Endgame run length. But yeah, check it out. You've probably checked it out at this point, or you're just like listening to my voice. But either way, thanks for everything. More of these to come. I will be doing one for Black Widow coming up in May. I want to try and do these like once a month, maybe. So if something comes out in April, but like that's the thing, nothing's been coming out. So give me a break. Well, I've been giving myself a break on these, but that's not really my fault, honestly, because I would be doing a lot more of these if movies were actually coming out. But the world's starting to open back up again, so hopefully we can get back into the theaters here in the next couple of months. I went back, but what I mean is I want movies to start releasing in theaters again. You know what I mean? Like, so I can actually go see them and start getting back to a routine. But, more to come. I'm going to be doing Black Widow and a lot of these big releases. That's the ones I like to do, the big superhero movies or just big movies in general that I just haven't seen. And I want to do other stuff too with this series beyond movies. Just right now, movies are the easiest one to do it with, but maybe albums and stuff like that in the future, but I don't know how I would do that without getting completely destroyed by the YouTube gods for copyright. So, and the Spotify gods and the podcast gods and, all of the gods looking above us. They wouldn't really appreciate me using copyrighted music. So I don't know. We'll figure something out, but there will be more of these to come. And thanks for listening to the preview review, and I'll see you on the next episode of the TJ Martino podcast. Check me out at tjmartino.com and subscribe to all of the pages, Spotify, Apple, you know the deal, and much more to come. tjmartino.com for everything me, and more to come, more guests, and thanks for listening, and peace out.